Tonight, a 2-hour special event.
What's the biggest misconception about you? Are you comfortable with yourself? What keeps you up at night? Do you ever second guess? Did you ever order anyone killed? How could you stay in this marriage? Why did you kill John Lennon? Do you believe there is a place called hell? Are you girl crazy? Will you tell me all about your first sexual experience? Who handles men the best? What do you think it means to be sexy? Are you bisexual? Can we talk a little bit about women? Do you have a boyfriend? Are you a diva? Do you think about marriage? Do you know much about foreign policy? Are you crazy in love? How do you know you won't marry again? Do you like being a father? What will you tell your children? Do you like being famous? Do you have a philosophy by which you live?
Barbara Walters, her story, in an interview unlike any other.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Describe your childhood.
My childhood. I guess the word that comes to my mind is lonely, and I'm not sure why. My father was in show business. He owned and operated nightclubs. They were called the Latin Quarter. There was one in Boston, there was one in New York, there was one in Florida. So we moved around a lot. I went to 3 different high schools in my 4 years of high school. So as I look back, I think it was maybe a strange childhood. To other people, to have a father who owned a nightclub, hey, wasn't that great? But I wanted him to come home every night and not just Friday nights. I wanted him not to sleep until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I guess I wanted my father to be a dentist.
What kind of a little girl were you?
I was a very serious little girl. My father said I had an inferiority complex. He probably was right. I read all the time. I got lost in a book. To this day, I read a lot, and to this day, I think I'm a serious person. I don't smile enough. Even on camera, I'm told, smile more. So look, folks. Isn't that awful?
Tell me about the Latin Quarter.
The Latin Quarter. Well, the most famous Latin Quarter was on Broadway and 48th Street. It had a big line of chorus girls. They were not nude like Las Vegas, but they were pretty undressed. They did the can-can. If I have a glass of wine, I will sing the theme song. Otherwise, I will spare you. I won't spare you. I'm going to do it. I can see all over the country people turning off their television sets. Okay. So this is Gay Paris. Come on along with me. We're going out to see the Latin Quarter. Put on your old beret. We'll sing the Marseillaise and put the wine away like water. Chorus girls, bum, bum, bum.
What celebrities do you remember seeing at the Latin Quarter?
Well, I remember Sophie Tucker. Does anybody remember Sophie Tucker? She was a big star. She was a kind of heavy-set woman, and she sang risque songs. And her most famous song was Some of These Days, You're Gonna Miss Me, Baby. I knew Milton Berle very well. I could do Milton Berle's act. I really could. Frank Sinatra worked at the Latin Quarter. There was a man named Willie Howard who used to pretend to be a French professor, except he had a Yiddish accent. I will now do it. Vous te do ave, vous te do ave. Ave dance out in the land of cotton. Meals are bad, hotels are rotten.
That's great.
Is that funny?
I love that. That's so funny. What did you learn about celebrities from that experience?
I learned from seeing celebrities that they could bleed, that they had a dark side, that they had children they didn't see, or divorces, or lack of relationship. I learned that celebrities were human beings. It has made my life, in terms of interviewing celebrities, very different. And I have never thought of a celebrity as someone so perfect and wonderful that I should be put off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, stop. Funny thing happened to my mother in Cleveland.
I thought you were born in Buffalo.
Oh, music.
What? Wait a minute.
That's it. We're in show business.
Do I get the job?
Tell me about your sister.
At the time, she was called retarded. She was slow. Chronologically, my sister was older. In truth, she was the younger sister. I resented her, yet I loved her. She made my parents, who had adored her, very unhappy because they looked at this child and saw how out of things and how lonely she was. So I guess the word that will come into my mind is troubled, difficult, not fun, not happy.
Were you sometimes embarrassed by your sister?
My parents, because she had no life, used to say to me, if I was going out with a girlfriend, take your sister. Can you take your sister? I felt so bad for her. Later on, when I was doing interviews with people who were physically or mentally afflicted, I think it gave me maybe a special understanding. And we did several stories with progeria children and their loving and wonderful parents. Lindsay, does anybody ever say anything to you that you don't like? Yes? It makes you sad? Are there times when people think you're a baby? How old do they think you are?
2.
They think you're 2. And what do you say to them?
I'm a baby.
You're not a baby. And that makes you feel bad? Well, all they have to do is hear you talk, and they know you're a big girl. One of the most amazing couples I ever interviewed, memorable, were Robert and Michelle Smithers, a married couple who were both blind and deaf. They are inspirational. Bob and Michelle, you have never actually seen each other. Bob, tell me what your wife looks like.
First of all, she is petite and rather delicate. She has delicate bone structure.
Michelle, how did you meet Bob?
In the hallway, I was walking very slowly. I was being careful. Here he was, walking. I did not see him, no, I did not even feel. I was, bang! Before I knew it, he cut me. That's how we met.
Michelle, do you ever say, why me? Or do you think this happened for a reason?
No, I do not question it. I should say that I am rather happy for what I am able to do and for what I have.
One of the most moving interviews I ever did was with Christopher Reeve, the actor who had been Superman, who was paralyzed in a horseback riding accident.
Before the surgery, when I first coming out of, consciousness, and you have the thought, maybe it's not worth everybody's trouble. And I had that thought for maybe 10 minutes.
That you wanted to die, pull the plug, whatever.
Yeah, I suggested maybe I should just check out. And Dana, my wonderful, wonderful wife, is the one who said, "But you're still you, and I love you."
You think you will walk again?
I think it's very possible I'll walk again.
And if you don't?
Then I won't walk again.
As simple as that.
Either you do or you don't. I see, it's like a game of cards. And if you think the game is worthwhile, then you just play the hand you're dealt. Sometimes you get a lot of face cards, sometimes you don't. But I think the game's worthwhile, I really do.
Barbara Walters, her story will continue in a moment.
Ready Spray Dry Deodorant, the antiperspirant deodorant.
You used to do commercials. Are you ever embarrassed when you look back at some of them?
I did commercials for a dog food, live. And the dog, I think we used to starve it, I don't know.
Let me give him his food and then we'll talk. Dogs all over America will surely be getting a lot more.
That is not my proudest hour.
Try this. This is Revlon's Natural Herb Cream Gel Cleanser. So try no Citgo Premium.
The gasoline with Zoom.
What did you think of your looks?
I was never beautiful. I would be called pert, attractive. If I'd been a dog, I mean, maybe they wouldn't have put me on television. But I mean, nobody ever put me on because I was beautiful or glamorous. Are you happy with the way you look?
Happy enough. Some days happier than other days, just like anybody else.
Were you good-looking, popular?
No. You know, we could sit and talk a lot about my looks. I don't think I'm all that hot stuff.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put you?
If I tell you, will you tell me?
Yes.
A 9.
Do I have to tell you?
You said you were.
I would say I am probably a 5 to 6.
When you were a young woman, who did you want to look like?
I always wanted to look like Audrey Hepburn. I had short hair and bangs. I just thought that she was the most beautiful. And I interviewed her at one point, and she was simply lovely. Do you know how wonderful looking you are? I mean, that face.
As I don't think, and I never thought I looked like anything much, I did make an effort. My looks are therefore attainable.
How?
Because,
tell me how.
Because they can look like Audrey Hepburn if they want to, by cutting off their hair, by buying the large glasses, by having the little sleeveless dresses. I'm not talking about now.
Yeah,
I created a look.
I copied you. I had the hair comb from Roman Holiday. I had the eyeliner that went around to make my eyes big. I never made it, I must say. But I remember copying that look.
How did you become a television personality?
The Today Show always had one female on the air called the Today Show Girl. She was usually a model or an actress. I was a writer on the Today Show. They had to have one female writer. She did the tea pouring, as I call it. She did the fashion shows. She did the celebrities. At one point, I was made a producer. I was the only female producer with 6 men. And I would then go out and do certain stories. And when the Today Girl took a vacation, I appeared on the Today Show. And I was sent to Paris to cover the Paris fashion shows. That was my first time that I can remember being on the air.
Barbara is with me right now to give us a filmed report. Would you tell me, was this a very trying experience for you?
Frank, it was awful. I mean, first of all, every day I had to go and look at fashion shows.
Oh.
And then I had to have lunch at Maxime's and drink champagne. And then I had to smell all the perfume at Dior. I mean, it was so trying that I took absolutely the very last plane I could to get back here today.
I look at it now and I think, I really was cute. I really was good. Why did it take anybody so long to discover me? In those days, we used to do fashion shows a lot.
We're going to be talking about something very feminine right now, fashion. This year, vinyl is the most exciting new fashion fabric. There was the prevalence of pants.
As the Today reporter, I did several stories. One was a day in the life of a Playboy bunny.
What is the bunny dip? You think you could show me? Let me try.
I think I could show you. Roll your weight on your right leg. And come out and take your glass from your tray and back to the table.
It's like a ballet movement, kind of.
Yes.
In 1964, I was hired to be on the air full-time, but not with the title co-host.
I'm Hugh Downs. This is Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters and I. Barbara Walters and I.
We continue now with Barbara Walters.
I worked with Hugh until he left the program in 1971.
This is the last time that the three of us will be working together. And I don't know how you sum up 9 years of pleasure and of friendship. This is the only way I know.
After Hugh Downs left the show, Frank McGee became the anchor, and that changed everything.
Good morning. I'm Frank McGee, and Barbara Walters is here.
Frank McGee was a very good newsman. He went to the head of the network and said that I could not ask the hard news questions. They all had to be done by him. And what they finally decided to do was that he could ask 3 questions, and then I could come in and ask 1. If I could do the interview outside of the studio, it was mine. So I started to look for interviews outside of the studio.
Mr. Secretary, this brings up one of the criticisms about you today, and that is that people say Henry Kissinger deals in excessive secrecy.
Once certain stereotypes develop, it is very difficult to deal with them.
You have said, I often find it fascinating to ponder by what standards history will judge Nixon when all the partisan battles are over. Well, how do you think he will be judged?
I think there isn't any doubt he'll be judged as one of the great presidents.
When you were a child and you were different from the other kids, did they make fun of you?
No, because I was always very dignified.
What are you the least tolerant of these days?
The least tolerant of any more lies or foolishness about me. The only mistake I ever did, the only harm I ever did was sing Over the Rainbow.
How would you like future generations to remember General Eisenhower?
There's certain fundamentals, and that's honesty, integrity, unselfishness, and Ike certainly was that. Some of the good qualities that he showed as a man, and that's what I hope they'll remember.
This morning, we mourn the death of our dear friend and our most respected colleague, Frank McGee. He died yesterday in a New York hospital after a 4-year battle with bone cancer.
When Frank McGee died, I became co-host. From then on, I think up to today, the women on the morning shows are co-hosts. That's a nice legacy to have.
When I first started in television and I got my first audition, I had you in my head.
When we sat down together for my first Barbara Walters interview, that was back in 1988, I was so nervous because Barbara Walters is coming to my house.
I remember seeing you on the Today Show, and you always had your legs crossed so that this leg would be placed on this leg. And you always used to do this.
The press has just been...
And I remember you looking up and looking down. Now, at the time I auditioned, I had no idea.
I was looking at questions.
And so what I did was I'd look down, and then I'd look up, and I'd talk, and then I'd look down. And there was nothing down there. And I was hired.
5 concerts.
You have a fear of heights.
On this Academy Award night.
Why were you always walking down giant staircases?
I'm sorry, I stepped on my skirt. Let's start it again.
I am terrified of heights.
Her name, Audrey Hepburn. Ah! Listen, you gotta let me hold on when this thing starts.
I remember doing a stand-up on an escalator going down. And somebody had to stand in the escalator.
Okay.
Because I was so afraid I might fall.
She of the Warren Beatty, blah, blah, and so on.
Barbara Walters, who has been on the NBC Today program for 13 years, signed a contract with ABC Today.
Her contract for a rumored $1 million a year specifies that she'll co-anchor the ABC Evening News, among other network appearances.
Why did you leave NBC for ABC?
I'd like to say they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. But here was my chance, historic, they told me, to be the first female co-anchor of a network news program.
How big a deal was that in 1976 to have a woman co-anchoring the network news?
In those days, nobody thought it was possible.
Harry Reasoner, Barbara Walters, bring you the news.
I have a new colleague to welcome. Barbara?
Thank you, Harry.
How many of you watched Barbara Walters last night on her initial? She started. That'll make Barbara real happy. $1 million and 2 guys tuned in.
I was called the $1 Million Baby. Even Anwar Sadat in an interview talked about how much money I was making.
How do you like a $1 million job? I must tell you quite frankly, you know the salary of my job. It is $12,000 only, and I'm working day and night, Barbara.
Your co-anchor, Harry Reasoner, wasn't thrilled about sitting next to you. Was it because you're a woman or because he didn't think you were qualified to sit next to him?
Harry Reasoner did not want a partner. If he was going to have a partner, he certainly didn't want me. He didn't want someone without that, quote, hard news background, and he certainly didn't want a woman.
By noting that I've kept time on your stories and mine tonight, you owe me 4 minutes.
The news business was a man's business.
Take three. Cue Barbara.
Good evening.
He was insulted. He felt he was being degraded. Harry could never really accept me.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Good night.
I have to shoot an arrow into Barbara Walters.
Ah, you mean you're making her fall in love with Harry Reasoner?
No. Harry just paid me to shoot her.
Just didn't care.
Stay away.
It's nice to see you. How about it?
People did not watch you on the ABC Evening News. Did you take that personally?
I remember reading the headline in one of the papers, Barbara Walters' failure. I felt I was drowning without a life preserver. The $1 million contract was not just for me to do the news, but for me to do a series of 1-hour primetime specials.
The Barbara Walters Special.
The specials saved my life.
Good evening, I'm Barbara Walters.
The first one had Barbara Streisand and her then boyfriend, and President-elect and Mrs. Jimmy Carter.
I don't know how to ask this, so I'll just ask it.
ahead.
But do you sleep in a double bed or twin bed?
Double bed.
Double bed.
Always it. Sometimes we sleep in a single bed, so much more comfortable than a double bed.
I don't know whether you want to go on anymore, but I don't.
I was criticized for doing specials that had people in the news along with celebrities. You can't do both, but people liked them. The specials took on a role of their own. I interviewed Fidel Castro and spent almost a week with him.
Do you feel funny crossing the Bay of Pigs with an American?
With friends America. With friend America.
American friends,
it's
yes.
A friendship relation.
It's a friendly relation.
Also, I spent a great deal of time in the Middle East and did the first and almost the only interview that the Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin, did with President Anwar Sadat of Egypt. They had never talked together before until this interview.
There might be a ray of light. There might be some concession. There might be a somewhat different position down the road.
You are always like this, Barbara.
I tried to...
Not everything.
This is what people are going to be asking of you.
Politics can't be conducted like this.
I have to keep trying.
I went to Tehran to interview the Shah and Empress of Iran.
I'm quoting, Your Majesty. In a man's life, women count only if they are beautiful, graceful, and know how to stay feminine. You may be equal in the eyes of the law, but not in ability. You have never produced a Michelangelo or a Bach or even a great cook. You are schemers, you are evil, all of you. Oh, Your Majesty, you said all these things.
Not with the same words.
So you don't feel that women are in that sense, equal, that they have the same intelligence or ability?
Not so far. Maybe you will become in the future. You can always have some exceptions and find fantastic women.
Here and there.
But yes.
Do you feel your wife is one of these rare exceptions?
I prefer not to answer.
More and more, those specials turned out to be celebrity interviews.
Mama made for me, made just for me.
Dolly, you said I felt that I never belonged. I felt I was always different.
I wanted more than to just be a farmer's daughter, even though I'm proud to be. I just wanted pretty things. I wanted money to buy the things that I had always been impressed with as a child. I wanted to, I guess, to be a star.
Are you worried about putting on weight?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Does it matter to you?
No, it doesn't, because I'm so happy and I enjoy eating.
You wouldn't care if you got fat?
I am fat.
Now?
Which, God, yeah.
I didn't want
I
to
can
say
hardly
it.
get into any of my clothes.
You don't care?
Not really.
God forbid something happened, and you were no longer beautiful.
No longer beautiful.
Would he still love you? This man who loves beautiful women?
That's a tough question. I mean, if I'm worth my salt, I should, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you?
That That's a tough question.
Suppose one of your sons came home and said, Dad, I've got this girl, and do you mind if, you know, we've been staying together or living together, you mind if we share a room here in the house?
In our house?
Yeah.
No chance.
You know, it happens in other families.
Well, it wouldn't happen in my family. I mean, if any one of them did that, I wouldn't speak to them ever again.
Ever again?
Ever again.
Do you mean if one of your sons came home and said, I'm having this, I like this girl and I'm living with her and we're not married, you would never speak to him again?
Aloha on the steel guitar.
At the same time I was doing these specials, I was failing as a news commentator.
You'd know more than I would, Barbara.
The audience, the viewers, realized how tense it was. Ru Knowledge, who was the president at that time of ABC News, made a big decision. He let Harry go, and he bet on me. Around this time, I started to do 2020. Hugh Downs was the host.
Tonight, up front, something that's...
And I think the network felt that maybe it would be an even better show if he had a partner, and it worked.
Barbara, I must say it's nice to share the desk with you again.
It's lovely to see you again in much better hours, don't you think?
I think so.
I was on 2020 for 25 years. They were very happy, and for me, productive times.
My memory with Barbara was that she was very warm, and I just wanted to, it was the first time in my life I never wanted an interview to end.
What's the question you most hate, so I can be sure to ask it?
When people ask, how are you so normal? It just makes me feel weird, because I'm like, I am normal. Like, it's a job.
Like this?
Yeah, good, that's good. And pull down, all the way
What
down.
sort of an athlete are you?
Pop it right in.
Pop it right in there.
I am good at nothing.
Whack the ball.
Oh, God. Oh, that's so embarrassing in front of everybody.
Okay, now you have to get upside down. This good?
Oh, God, Tom.
Closer. Remember Terminator?
There you go.
There I go. And then put it in the... Oh, sorry.
No, we gotta catch it.
What are you doing here?
You know.
What is this? It's just...
She's nervous.
I'm making it go. Ready?
What?
There is no sport that I am best at. My worst sport is everything.
I am woman, hear me roar. And numbers too high, let's go talk. Come on, you're gonna rip the table up.
You've interviewed a lot of handsome men. Did you ever flirt with any of them?
I had the biggest crush on Clint Eastwood. We did an interview, and he began to flirt, and I fell apart.
You would drive me nuts, and I would drive you crazy, because I would be saying, but, you know, but didn't you, or haven't you, or haven't you?
Well, we could try it and see if it worked out.
We'll start with this interview. If this is okay, we get some, well, maybe we'll do another interview. I think we'll stop and reload.
People are interested in love and marriage, their own and everybody else's. So it's a subject that fascinates everybody.
Do you believe in total fidelity?
Do I believe in what?
You've been married 10 years?
In September, it'll be 10 years. And we'll be married forever.
How do you know?
I know.
You don't know, but
I do know that.
We want to be.
And what makes marriage work?
I suppose it's a lack of imagination.
Separate bedrooms and separate baths. That's what makes a good marriage. I think that gives you a chance.
Your parents were together for 65 years, but it wasn't a perfect marriage. How so?
In those days, people didn't get divorced. My mother liked to stay home. She was this conservative, nice lady. She married a man who was gifted, brilliant, a producer, and a gambler. My mother was always afraid that my father was going to lose everything financially, which he did. My fear always was that I would have to support my mother and father and sister. It was a fear that came true.
You were married more than once. Why didn't the marriages work?
I don't think that I was very good at marriage. It may be that my career was just too important. It may have been that I was a difficult person to be married to, and I just seemed to be better alone. I'm not lonely, I'm alone.
Tell me, did you always want to have a child?
I very much wanted to have a child. I had 3 miscarriages, and finally, my husband, then Lee Goober, and I adopted a baby girl. I knew that my sister was never going to be married and have a child, and I wanted her to have part of the joy that I had. And so I named my daughter Jacqueline after my sister. Now you have 2 children.
Yes.
Both adopted.
Yes.
Change your life?
Just parenting changes your life completely from day one.
It's an amazing thing to take care of a child and have a child trust you and love you, and it makes me feel like I somehow have a purpose.
I guess I never knew until my children were born that I could love anyone more than I loved myself or loved my work.
The first time your child, unsolicited, says, "I love you," you'll fall apart like a $2 sign.
You were 50 when you adopted your little girl.
Yeah, old, too old probably. But what can I do?
Yeah.
How could I have not had this experience? I mean, how could I have gone through my life without having done this? This is like the most monumentally stunning event in my life is this.
Do you want more children?
I'd love more children. I'd love 2 more children. I've always wanted a big family. I love big families, so.
So?
I've had
This is the first she's heard. This is the first she's heard about this.
Cher, when you have different men in your life, what does it do to your kids?
If I were going to live for my children alone, I would probably just settle with one man and make a good Betty Crocker type of home life. Life doesn't work that way for me, and they're just going to have to be strong enough to rise above it.
How did Jackie like having a famous journalist for a mom?
Jackie has found it difficult all her life because she wants to be anonymous. She just doesn't like to be a celebrity. She may be the only one in the world who doesn't like to be a celebrity.
How were you able to balance having a big career and having a daughter?
I think every woman who works, not just somebody who's on television, not just a celebrity, faces a balancing act.
We are in a period in which women are trying so hard to have it all, the marriage, the children, the career. I think it's very tough. I know how much I have to do.
It's impossible.
Okay.
It's impossible. If I were a man, I would not marry a woman with a career. And I thought to myself, as a mother, supposing little Johnny or little Katie had the mumps, and I had an opening night, I'd want to strangle the children.
There's no answer. You do your best.
It's different now, though, isn't it? I mean, the world is different, don't you think, for women?
No. Do you feel guilty?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but not extensively guilty, but I have guilty pangs, you know, because in my mind, good parents would never leave their children. And I wish I could say that I would have done it differently, but damn it, I wouldn't have. You know, this was my shot. I got a shot and I took it. A lot of people paid the price for it, but nobody more than my kid.
Do you have any regrets when it comes to Jackie?
I look back and I think I wish I had been with her more. I was so busy with a career. It's the age-old problem, and you know, on your deathbed, are you going to say, I wish I'd spent more time in the office? No. You'll say, I wish I spent more time with my family. And I do feel that way. I wish I had spent more time with my Jackie.
Barbara Walters, her story will continue in a moment.
When you see how Americans today distrust their leaders, don't you feel responsible?
Does it bother you today when people say Ronald Reagan is the president of the rich? How important is it for the president to be a role model? Was it worth it if there were no weapons of mass destruction? Why are you so unpopular? Welcome to the hallway of my home. The bedrooms are off. You're not going to see the bedrooms. This is where I keep photographs from my interviews with presidents and world leaders. Here we are on my wall of controversy. Fidel Castro, who wrote, "For the longest and most difficult interview I've ever done in my life." These questions here are questions that I used when I interviewed Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin. These are the actual questions. Moving right along, we're going to get to presidents and first ladies because I interviewed every president since Richard Nixon. Here's a favorite of mine. Of course, you recognize him. This was on Air Force One with Bill Clinton. Did you really say you were sorry you didn't inhale?
What I said was that I was trying to say that I actually tried. I was not trying to exonerate myself when I said I didn't inhale, that I had an allergy and couldn't do it.
At the top of my wall, a picture with Ronald Reagan at his ranch. I hope you're a good driver. You know what you're doing, I hope.
Yes, I've been driving this for quite a while. You probably deduced that it wasn't new.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is the scroungiest Jeep I have. The upholstery is coming out. I mean, I know we have an austerity program, but this is ridiculous.
Also on my wall, another president, George W. Bush, at his ranch in Texas before his inauguration. The U.S. Civil Rights Commission has called the elections in Florida a disaster.
Why, because the wrong person won?
Well, I'm not sure, but that's what they said. What do you say to the people who feel that you didn't win the election, but that the Supreme Court handed it to you?
I say that they didn't watch the recounts. Every time they recounted, I won.
Also on this wall, President and Mrs. Obama, whom I have interviewed 5 different times.
Well, hello.
Hello, Barbara.
Well, hello. Fancy meeting you here.
How are you? What are you doing?
It's hard to sit opposite you, Mr. President, and say this, but a lot of the criticism is personal. People just don't think you're trustworthy.
Well, I don't think that's true, Barbara. You know, the truth of the matter is that I got reelected in part because people did think I was trustworthy and they knew I was working on their behalf.
Here, a very relaxed Richard Nixon. He was nowhere near as relaxed, nor was I, when I interviewed him after Watergate. Even people like Henry Kissinger, who knows you very well, talk about this remoteness, this inability to reach you.
I like Henry very much.
Let us go on. In those days...
Why don't we get serious?
Well, because I think people are still, I am serious. People are interested in you. People are still trying to understand you. I'm sorry you find that you find these questions unserious. We have a different idea, perhaps, of what serious is, but let me go on.
No, I'm not objecting to the questions, you know.
I'm very serious.
Not at all.
I saved my hardest question for the very end. Are you sorry you didn't burn the tapes?
Yes, I think so, because they were private conversations subject to misinterpretation, as we have all seen.
This photograph of President and Mrs. Ford is remarkable to me because Betty Ford was obviously inebriated. This is the most personal room in the White House, isn't it?
Yes. Barbara, I fixed this room for him. I brought things from home. Our house is blue leather chair and footstool and...
Some years later, she went into rehab herself, became sober, and founded the Betty Ford Clinic, a wonderful legacy. On my opposite wall, the first President Bush and his wife Barbara with her 3-strand pearls, favorite couple of mine. Mrs. Bush, we've been reading this week that you've received so many letters from people who say, oh, now I can let my hair go gray, I can gain a pound or 2.
I've been reading some aloud to George that are really slightly insulting, but very funny.
Why
and they're all met with, well, I mean, stay fat, stay gray, stay wrinkled, we love you.
They're not talking about whether you're a blimp or not. I mean, no, but they're talking about...
He's a big help.
A certain genuineness. 10 years ago, that'd have hurt her feelings, and they
George
don't.
said to me that, you don't want that dessert, do you? And I said, well, I'll have to eat it, George, for my fans.
Over here, a photograph that never appeared anywhere. President Jimmy Carter with my daughter Jackie when he invited her to the White House to meet his daughter, Amy. Sweet picture. And I'll never forget the way I ended my interview with the Carters right before his inauguration. I was criticized for it, and really, it still makes me cringe. Thank you for letting us in your house and in your lives.
Thank you.
Be wise with us, Governor. Be good to us.
Try.
Okay.
What I remember about my 2 Barbara Walters interviews is that both times you're absolutely petrified, because you know she's going to try and get those questions in that are going to break you, but she will never break me, but she tried. But the other thing is that you knew she always came in so meticulously and beautifully prepared, made you realize that you probably will never be in the presence of an interviewer who has that stature ever again.
You have what I call killer questions, and sometimes they are literally to killers, but often they are questions that it's hard to believe you have the guts to ask. Are there questions you're shocked you asked yourself?
There was a question that I wanted to ask Vladimir Putin. I put it in as my very last question.
I'm going to ask you a terrible question. Did you ever order anyone killed?
Нет. Let's talk about the killers first.
I have interviewed a lot of alleged and convicted killers, probably none as hated as Mark David Chapman, who killed John Lennon.
Why did you kill John Lennon?
I thought by killing him, I would acquire his fame.
Bring me back to December 8th, 1980.
So I'm sitting there, and this limo pulls up. I heard this voice saying over and over, do it, do it, do it, do it. I guess that was me inside. And I pulled the .38 revolver out of my pocket, and I fired at his back 5 steady shots.
What about the Menendez brothers?
The Menendez brothers had killed their parents and then wanted us to feel sorry for them because they were orphans.
Tell me as clearly as you can why you murdered your parents that night.
Just before the shootings, my dad told me to get to my room and that he would be there in a minute, and he was going to come up and there was going to be sex, and it was like an explosion in my mind.
Do you feel remorse?
Tremendous remorse. Just a normal, I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
I know.
What about Robert Blake, who was accused and acquitted of murdering his wife?
Robert Blake is what I would call a piece of work. He was a child star. He has a way with words.
Robert, are you innocent?
Of course I'm innocent.
What if you are found guilty?
What do I care? How do you kill a dead man? What are they going to do to me that they haven't done already? They're going to take my testicles and make earrings out of them? What are they going to do to me?
I also remember Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator of Libya. There was a question I wanted to ask, and I didn't know how to do it.
Can I ask you something very directly, which may seem rude? We read that you are unstable. We read that you are mad. Does it make you angry?
طبعا بتضايقني. Of course, it irritates me.
لكن نحاول.
Nevertheless, I consider or do believe that the majority of the ordinary people in the 4 corners of the globe do love me.
One of the most emotional interviews I did was with a woman named Jean Harris, who had been a former headmistress at an all-girls school and had shot the man she loved, who was known as the Scarsdale doctor, Dr. Tarnower. She was sentenced to 20 years, and I interviewed her in prison.
Do you still love him?
Yes.
Do you think about it?
Oh, no.
I shan't. I shan't. I shan't. Let's talk about your life a little bit here, all right?
I think about him constantly. It's one of the reasons I don't care if I get out, actually. I can't imagine what it would be like out there without him. This is that stupid.
Now let's talk about the killer questions that just killed people's egos and images. You got Sean Connery into a bit of trouble with a question you asked him.
I had read somewhere that Sean Connery was not above hitting a woman if he felt she needed it.
Okay, you did an interview in which you said, not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist, it's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good.
I don't think it's bad.
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
Have the tough questions gotten easier to ask? And I'm thinking specifically about sexual orientation.
You can be much blunter today in questions. You can ask more questions about sex than you could certainly when I began.
Are you bisexual?
Yeah, of course I am.
You've also said that you're bisexual.
I love women. I love men.
Do you feel now like a pioneer?
Yeah, I do. I know that when I leave this place, I will have done something. I will have actually changed people's minds.
There have been the rumors that question or talk about your sexual orientation.
I think that sexuality is something that each individual should deal with in their own way.
You know, you could stop these rumors.
However, for some reason, I just don't feel like it.
What about drugs? Are you surprised at how many people you have to ask about substance abuse?
I had no idea that it was as common as it turns out to be.
You started pushing drugs. Why?
I wouldn't say pushing, I was marketing them.
We didn't invent drugs. We were told that if you took them, you would be wiser, and I never thought I abused them. I found out later that I did.
What about the drinking and drugs, cocaine?
I really, really enjoyed it. The cocaine especially.
Are you sober now?
No, now, yeah. I'm never, but I have moments I have to have a few beers, you know.
Yeah. You recently said, my mom wasn't the greatest person. She drank. She probably did drugs and stuff.
She just didn't want me to, have to go through that.
So does that mean that you feel, I'll never touch drugs, I'll never do that?
I'm never going to do any of that stuff.
Do you drink too much?
Yep. Barbara came and interviewed me after I got sober. It was the first interview I gave, and she came to my house in England.
Did you get married to prove that you were not gay?
No, I got married because I didn't confront the real problem in my life, that I was a drug addict.
And so that interview was very memorable because A, I enjoyed it, and B, it was an important one for me to give, and perfect for her to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you one of America's top news correspondents. Would you welcome Barbara Walters?
Would you welcome, please, Miss Barbara Walters.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Barbara Walters. Barbara, come around.
I believe in promotion. I think if you're going to do something, you should tell people about it.
It's 11 minutes before the hour right now. Tonight, Barbara Walters presenting her first television special for ABC, and it's nice to have her with us this morning. Morning, Barbara.
We do another show called The 10 Most Fascinating People.
Yes.
That we're doing in December.
I'd like to be on that, too. I'm very fascinated.
Yeah. I promote every interview I do. What's the point of doing it, working that hard, and not telling people about it? At least open your window and shout.
Tell us how you prepare for an interview.
Well, the first thing I tell anybody who's going to be doing interviews is homework. I do so much homework. I know more about the person than he or she does about himself.
At one point, you had terrible anxiety attacks.
Oh, you did do your homework.
Oh, I did do my homework.
You did.
I don't know when I talked about that. How did you find that out?
How did you find out about that?
How do you know that?
2002, you told me you wanted to wait to have sex until after you married.
I said that?
You said you were a mama's boy. She wanted you to be a minister.
You really are thorough with your research.
Then I can write 50 or 100 questions on little 3x5 cards. I put them in order. Then I throw some away. Then I put others in. Then if anybody comes in, if you've come in to deliver the soup, I say, do you, by the way, have any questions that you'd like to ask so-and-so? And I'm not kidding.
How important is the order of those questions?
I can spend hours, days, changing the order of questions. But here's the important thing. You gotta know your questions so you can throw them all away if you have to.
Do people ever say things that make your jaw drop?
Oh my goodness, I remember doing an interview with the actress Anne Heche. It was the weirdest interview I think I've done.
You wrote in your book that you were insane. Those were your words, insane, for 31 years. You're 32 now.
I had another personality. I had a fantasy world that I escaped to. I believed I was from another planet. I spoke a different language.
Can you still remember that language you spoke?
Of course.
Can you do any of it?
Akines, akaforka tunadon. It is a good fortune, Istadon, to be here.
What do you do if someone tries to dodge a question?
Most politicians try to dodge questions. You have to push. You will hear me ask the question again and again.
Okay, here it comes. When will you, if you do, decide whether or not you're going to run for president?
Well, it's such a difficult decision, and it's one that I am not going to rush into.
Will you consider running for president in 2016?
Well, that would be fascinating to me as well as everyone else.
I have to push for the answer about whether or not you might run for president.
I'm flattered that people are talking about, but I haven't made up my mind.
You really haven't?
I really have not.
What would it take to convince you to run? And
You know, that's all hypothetical.
Does your husband want you to run?
He is very respectful. He knows that this is...
But he does want you to run.
Well, he wants me to do what I think is right.
You have these classic questions. What's the biggest misconception about you is one question you ask a lot. Why?
I tried to ask questions that people are not asked all the time, that make them think, that tell me something I haven't heard before.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
That I'm flaky. But I am a little flaky.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
No misconception.
Brooding and difficult.
That I'm not a real person. That I'm a bitch, maybe, if people think that.
Now, why do they think that? Why do you?
Because I'm
why
just
do-
like you. I have standards.
I very often ask people, do you have a philosophy by which you live? It's a provocative question and a thoughtful question, and sometimes very surprising answers.
Do you have a philosophy by which you live?
Doesn't everybody?
Do you have a philosophy?
Staying hungry. That's it.
Do you have a philosophy by which you live?
Life is a banquet and most puss suckers are starving to death.
I don't embrace negativity. I don't allow myself to be angry or bitter.
Do you and the president have a philosophy?
That everybody is put here for a purpose, and there's a reason for their life.
I'm not a great planner. I just try and take each moment as it comes, you know, and try and be as truthful to myself in that moment as I can be.
Do you have a philosophy?
I guess.
What?
Unto thine own self be true.
When I do an interview, I want a strong beginning and a strong ending. So in order to get that strong ending, I often ask, finish this sentence for me.
Finish this sentence for me. Will Ferrell is...
funny, but honest and devilishly handsome.
That'll do it. Usher is...
Here.
Anne Hathaway is...
Very, very, very over the moon happy.
Mariah Carey is...
A nice girl.
Donald Trump is...
A good person.
Chris Christie is...
A leader.
Kanye West is...
Black. That's the first thing that popped in my mind.
Finish the sentence for me. Bill Gates is...
Well, I think that's, sort of an oversimplification for anybody to say, somebody is just one thing.
Right now, Sharon Stone is...
really, really tired.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Well, now that it's over, can I see your cards?
Why ask what was the best time, what was the worst time?
President Obama has said that at dinner with Michelle and their daughters, he often asks, what is the rose and what is the thorn? I very often say to someone, what is the best time in your life and what was the worst?
If there was a time that really you think of as the best time, the happiest time, what was it?
On a Christmas night at 4 o'clock in the morning when Gracie called me up and she said yes.
Really?
She wasn't going to marry me. She was going to marry somebody else. And she called me up. She says, let's get married.
What was the worst time?
My divorce.
Yeah.
Worst time.
What's been the best time of your life?
Right here, right now, with you.
What was the best time?
Saturday Night Live, those years.
Better than now.
Back then I was Eddie Murphy, and now I'm Eddie Murphy Productions.
What was the lowest?
I suppose the lowest point I had was was my first divorce.
Does it get easier if it's the second divorce or the...
Is the best yet to come, or have you been there already?
I think this is it. What else would I want to do? I mean,
what are you
look
going to do
did.
from 34 to 90?
You mean I have to go on?
What was the best time of your life?
Now. Mm-hmm.
What was the worst?
Then.
Of all the interviews I've ever done, I will never forget the interview I did with Barbara. I'm sure everybody says that, but perhaps even more so for me, because at one point she asked me at the Oscars interview to give her a lap dance. It's not the usual question you get, and of course I obliged.
Okay, Barbara. How you feeling on this Oscar night special? Wait, look at me, baby. Come on.
I don't want to do... There are no questions.
You know what
This concludes
Come on.
the interview.
Turn off those cameras.
I've grown accustomed to your face.
What sort of a singing voice do you have?
Kind of makes today begin.
I'm not bad. I love to sing with people.
What did he say?
He said if I be lifted up, and even be glad just to be sad, singing with you. Oh, that's terrible.
I would love to have been the kind of singer who works in a smoke-filled room doing ballads and love songs. That would have been just my type.
I've grown accustomed to the trace of something in the air. Accustomed to
How did you get the reputation for making people cry?
I would ask questions about their childhood, relationship with their parents. I very often ask people about their fathers and get a more emotional answer than I do if I ask about mothers.
Your father died in 1982. This was terribly difficult for you. It wasn't just something that you could accept.
I love that man. That, you caught me off guard, I'm sorry. My passion. That I was gonna make that man proud of me till I died. Everything he wanted for me, everything he dreamed about. No, he never got to know.
You made him proud.
Oh, Jesus. Well, that was his problem. He thought crying was weak. Texas mentality.
There was also Goldie Hawn, who told me about the advice her father gave her.
And my dad used to say, you start feeling too big for your britches, Goldie. Just go stand out there and look at that ocean. And you won't feel so big.
I remember Jim Carrey, who had a very rough time at the beginning of his career. Tell us the story about the check.
I guess it's like 6, 7 years ago now. I wrote a check out to myself for $10 million for acting services rendered
And I put it in my wallet, and what happened was basically a few months ago, we did the deal for the mask for $10 million.
At the height of everything, your father died. Did he know, did your father know that you'd made this kind of success?
Yeah.
What did it mean to him?
I don't think he knew the magnitude of it. He realized, you know, that I had reached my goal. In fact, I put the check in with him in the casket.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah. Here we go.
I said I wasn't going to make you
Yeah,
cry.
damn you.
I promised I wouldn't make you cry. General Norman Schwarzkopf, that tough general, was almost in tears when he talked about his own father. There are certain questions I ask you, like about your father, and the tears come to your eyes.
I didn't know it showed.
The old picture of generals. Generals don't cry. Generals don't get tears in their eyes.
Sure they do.
They just didn't admit it.
Oh, I think they admitted it. And frankly, any man that doesn't cry scares me a little bit.
What are some of the things that make people cry?
You know, surprisingly, with some celebrities, it's not the worst time, but the best time. Like when they realize that they're a star. The big breakthrough for you was the Johnny Carson show.
Yes, I had been kicking around in the business for 6 years before that, and told 3 weeks before my agent, "You're too old and you're not funny." I'd been brought to the Carson show 7 times. I'd auditioned for them 7 times.
And got turned down.
7 times turned down. And I went on the Carson show, and that night, I get very emotional, he changed my whole life. He turned around and said, "You're all wrong. She is funny." See, I'm crying now. I couldn't believe it. He said, "You're going to be a star." And I looked next to me. Who was he talking to? And my agent said, "From now on," he said, "I guarantee you'll make at least $150 a week for the rest of your life." Wow. Wow.
I remember Roseanne talking about a very low point in her life, but that how her sister had always been there for her. People say that I make people cry. I'm asking you about your sister.
I'm tearing up, but I'm not.
Because you love her that much. That's
yeah, I
nice.
do love my sister very much.
That's nice.
And she helped me. God, I hate myself for doing this, but she really helped me all through my life.
Why do you hate yourself for doing this? That's okay. You can laugh and you can do this too.
Maybe if I pick my nose, you'll pull the cameras off me.
That's right. It became a joke that I made people cry. Every time I did an interview, somebody would say, "You're not going to make me cry." Do you know who your parents were? Did you go into comedy because you couldn't make it as an actor?
Yes.
You cry on this program, I won't run any of it. You promised me you wouldn't cry.
Debbie, I couldn't make it as an actor. I remember doing Hamlet going, "To be, line." Yeah, they go.
I just realized.
I can't believe it.
Is anyone ever really happy when they make it through an interview without crying?
Yes, Halle Berry. Thank you, Halle.
Thank you.
And no tears!
Ah, you almost did. You almost did at the end, and I was going to stop you.
I'd always known Barbara as a fellow professional in this business. And so when she came to us and said she wanted to do a piece about Richard, my husband, and me, and our dealings with MS, I thought, well, that's great. And I knew that she had a reputation for making people cry, but I figured it's never going to happen to me.
He's teaching them compassion and strength and dignity, bravery.
Are you going to tell people I made you cry?
You are. She's an evil woman.
If a person had never seen your work before and you could only show a few of your interviews, what would they be?
I would like to show John Wayne. I did an interview with him just 3 months before he died. Oh, he was so masculine and straightforward. And also, when I was having such trouble on television, he sent me a telegram that said, "Don't let the bastards get you down." Signed, John Wayne. Do you feel in a relationship that the man should be the boss, the macho, the...
Well, if this country had stayed the way it was, and if we hadn't made it so tough for a family to keep up their type of living, their wives had to go to work. I would think it would be more pleasant. I'd think it'd be more pleasant for the lady as well.
For the man to go to work and
The
the
man
lady to stay
go to
home.
work and the lady to have her other interests. Political, bridge,
Oh, are you going to be in trouble?
why?
I mean, what if I said to you, why don't you, it'd be Duke, I'd say, have
Bridge?
your little life, play
Good.
your bridge.
Good, I'll
stay
go play
home.
bridge and you go do the work. That's fine with me. I love bridge.
Do you watch your old movies on television?
Occasionally, when there's a real oldie, like they had Wake of the Red Witch on the other night, I looked at, I don't know, till I fell asleep.
How'd you feel?
Well, it's kind of irritating to see I was a good-looking 40-year-old man, and suddenly I can look over here and see this 71-year-old.
You're not a bad-looking fella.
Well, yeah, but I'm not squawking, but it's you kind of think, God, it was pretty wonderful then.
Are you a changed man since the illness? Did it affect you very much?
I don't think it did. Listen, I spoke to the man up there on many occasions, and I have, but I've always had deep faith that there is a supreme being. There has to be. It's just, to me, that's just a normal thing to have that kind of faith. The fact that he's let me stick around a little longer, or she's let me stick around a little longer, certainly goes great with me. And I want to hang around as long as I'm healthy and not in anybody's way.
Has it been a good life?
Great for me.
Any regrets?
Great for me. Here and there, probably.
If you had it to do all over again, would
I'd
you
do it the same way.
The same way?
Let's face it.
Stick around for a while longer, will you?
I sure want to.
Thank you, Mr. Wayne.
Thank you, Barbara.
I would also choose the interview with Robin Givens and her then husband, Mike Tyson. Everywhere I went the next day, people asked me about it.
You know what people write about you, say about you. This is the beautiful, glamorous actress. This is a man who was a high school dropout. What did you have in common?
Our honesty, our sense of tradition. He was persistent. He came to claim me, and I like that.
There was no prenuptial agreement.
No, and why should there be? We got married to be together forever, not to plan for divorce.
What do you think about what Robin's saying?
For this stage of my life, I do have many a millions. My wife would just have to ask for it, and she has every penny I have. She has the right to do that. She's still here. She tolerates my... And I love my wife.
Robin, some of the things that we've read, that he's hit you, that Mike has a very volatile temper, true?
I think that there's a time when he cannot control his temper, and that's frightening to me.
Does he hit you?
He shakes, he pushes, he swings. Sometimes I think he's trying to scare me. There are times when, or there were times when it happened when I thought I could handle it, And just recently I've become afraid. I mean, very, very much afraid.
What is your greatest fear now, Robin?
Probably that we won't make it. That this would have all been in vain. And like every day is a battle.
Gonna win this battle?
Yeah. I usually come out on top, and I plan on coming out top again.
1 week later, Robin Givens filed for divorce. I would also choose Monica Lewinsky, the most famous intern of all time, and I think still the highest rated news interview of all time. And no wonder. The relationship between her and Bill Clinton is discussed almost to this day.
November 15th, 1995. And that day, you found yourself alone with Bill Clinton in the Chief of Staff's office, and you lifted the back of your jacket and you showed the President of the United States your thong underwear. Where did you get the nerve? I mean, who does that?
Well, when I first found myself alone with him, I was very nervous, and we were having small talk, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, this is it. If this is going to happen, I mean, maybe you should let him know you're interested. So I blurted out, you know, I have a crush on you. And
he kissed you?
Yes.
What'd you think?
He's a good kisser.
How did it become so intimate so quickly?
This may be hard for people to hear or accept. I've said it before, I thought he was my sexual soulmate.
Did you ever tell Bill Clinton that you were in love with him?
Yes.
You did. What did he say?
He said that means a lot to me.
Did he ever tell you that he was in love with you?
No.
What will you tell your children when you have them?
Mommy made a big mistake.
What would be my great memory with Barbara as far as an interview? She said, if you had to write a song, what would be the name of that song? And I said, well, I'm just out here living a dream.
Let me think, okay?
And then she said the most terrifying. Would you play that song for us now?
I'm just out here living a dream like nobody can. I'm just out here, just a man born before that.
I want my 10%.
You can have it. I can do it right quick.
Not for ladies only.
I was horseback riding with Saddam Hussein just last week. Welcome back to Hot Topics.
Over the years, people have made fun of the way you talk.
I was told that I didn't pronounce my R's. And that's when Baba Wawa was being done on Saturday Night Live.
This is Baba Wawa Watch.
I hated Baba Wawa.
What was Where's Willy White, Richard?
At one point, I walked into my daughter's room. She was watching television and laughing. I said, how can you laugh at that? And she said, oh, Mommy, where's your sense of humor?
Thank you very much. This is Barbara Wawa saying have a pleasant weekend.
In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, apart, please! 3, 2, 1.
How did The View come about?
It was 17 years ago when an executive at ABC Daytime came to Bill Getty and me and said, do you have an idea for a show? And I said, I have an idea for a show.
I've always wanted to do a show with women of different generations, backgrounds, and views. This is that show.
Bill Getty and I sat down then with a group of women to try and see how the conversation would work out. We were going to have various groups.
Which we've all seen, 39 dead in cult suicide.
These young people are obviously searching for something.
The UFO thing doesn't strike me as odd.
The first group was the best, and that's how The View began.
At the beginning, did you expect it to be successful?
There had not been a show with a group of people sitting together and talking unscripted. I thought it might last a year or two.
Why didn't you moderate the show?
Rue Knowledge, who was the president of ABC News, felt that my doing The View, a daytime show, would lessen my news credentials. So he didn't want me to moderate.
She's the one in charge, Meredith Vieira.
Yeah, you just remember that, Babs, okay?
So I chose Meredith Vieira to moderate.
They told me part of my job would be ordering Barbara Walters around. How do you turn that down? It's a great gig. I had to take it.
Then Rosie took on that role.
No, it's my first day on The View. I'm in the Meredith chair, and it's exciting.
And then, of course, Whoopi.
Good morning, I'm Whoopi Goldberg.
It's a great place to express yourself, give opinions, show the kind of person you really are.
I have been married more than once, and I never wanted to get married when I did.
As I went.
Okay.
And here on The View, I could be funny. I had women whom I could joke with.
Oh, I always think of you not just as a friend or a sister, but as a lover.
And I could show good, bad, or indifferent my personality.
When did you first learn about sex?
Well, I didn't learn about sex until I started to do this show, and now I know more about sex than I ever wanted to know.
We were the first daytime talk show to have a sitting president as a guest.
Look, I was trying to find a show that Michelle actually watched.
For a while there, The View seemed to go from one controversy to another. What stands out in your mind?
We had a lot of controversies. We had Star Jones quitting.
I will not be returning as co-host next year.
Star Jones' ambush announcement yesterday stunned viewers.
She just announced she's leaving The View, but was she fired?
Defend your own insinuations.
I defend my thoughts.
Defend your own thoughts.
We had our time with Rosie O'Donnell.
Politics became personal on the daytime talk show The View.
The war of words between Rosie and Elizabeth.
The United States Naval Fleet is here in New York City, and they're trying to keep peace on The View. That's why they're here.
70 families died. What killed us on 9/11?
Oh, my God.
So I say we had our ups and downs.
You're outraged about Muslims killing us on 9/11.
A historic walkout on The View.
Whoopi and Joy walked off live on the air.
Everybody's talking about making the Palestinians and the Israelis sit down and talk in the Middle East. We can't even get the ladies of View to sit down and talk with Bill O'Reilly. You see that today?
Controversy has been a part of The View. That's why it's called The View. I welcome it.
We are back to kick off season 17.
The View has shown that women can be together and enjoy each other and have the kind of conversations that you may have in the morning with a girlfriend.
I've been, and I can say this honestly, monogamous in every relationship I have.
I will miss being with the women every day.
I love you guys.
I will miss giving my opinions. I think perhaps I will miss The View more than any other program I have done.
At my house, it's a large crew, a lot of lights. And yeah, we were in my living room, which I just converted to my bedroom. And then probably the foot rub at the end.
I've had a good time,
Thank
and
you,
I'm
I have
waiting
too.
for my foot rub.
That's the easy part. All right?
We'll
Just to
stop the
take
tape.
it.
We'll stop
Hang
the
on.
tape.
Hang on, don't stop the
We'll
tape.
stop the tape.
It really does feel good.
It does feel good.
I gotta get this shoe off.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting undressed here.
Just the
We'll
shoe.
stop the tape.
Just the shoe.
You've had a lot of people try and explain their success to you. How do you explain your own success?
Part of my success was luck, being there at the right time. Part of my success is hard work. I think of what Jack Benny once said, which is if the audience likes you, that's the best thing that can happen to you. If the audience doesn't like you, there's nothing you can do about it. And I've just been blessed with this wonderful career and been accepted.
You call yourself a woulda, coulda, shoulda type of person. You have a lot of self-doubt. Why?
I think a lot of women are like me. I should have done that. I could have done that. Why didn't I do that? I do that all the time. It's my idea of hell. I finish an interview. I've asked every question. Somebody said to me, did you ask thus and such? And I think, oh, I could have, I should have, I would have. I must stop. It's getting too late for that.
I'm now going to ask you some classic questions you ask everybody else. What is the biggest misconception about you?
Perhaps the biggest misconception is that I'm too serious and I have no sense of humor.
Do you have a philosophy by which you live?
I say to myself very often in good times and especially in bad, this too shall pass.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, this is the toughest question. I want to be remembered by my daughter as a good and loving mother. I want to be remembered by my friends as somebody who was loyal. I want to be remembered in television maybe as a creator, maybe as a good newswoman. No, more than being remembered, I hope that by younger women, I can help them aspire.
What will you miss the most?
I will miss the friendships, the people I work with. I will miss being on top of the news. I will miss having a structure in my life. But I do know that it's time. To all intents and purposes, my career in television of 50 years is almost over. I have to learn to live with that, don't I?
Finish this sentence for me. Barbara Walters is...
soon to leave television. And if she is truthful, she will miss it.
I'm sure people here would love to have a photo of you at this moment. Can we do that, dear?
Sure.